A boy named Matthew Miller was moving to a new school, and he felt quite anxious about it. He worried about the possibility of being bullied, especially since his mother had recently remarried. When they moved in with his stepfather, Matthew was still unsettled and not very enthusiastic about starting at a new school. However, he had the support of his mother and stepfather, which was comforting. On his first day, Matthew felt uncomfortable. Nick tried to tease him a couple of times, but they quickly became friends. Nick introduced Matthew to a girl named Ruby, and during their conversation, she invited him to join an exclusive school club. Although Matthew wasn't initially interested, he went along with it because of his friend's encouragement. That same day, Matthew took a test and later approached the school's popular cheerleader, Teresa, to ask her out on a date. Unfortunately, as he did this, Teresa's boyfriend, Hector Torres, arrived and saw them together. Hector became angry and confronted Matthew, leading to a fight. This incident left Matthew feeling disheartened. When he got home, Matthew packed his belongings, picked up a book, and retreated to his room to read. At that moment, Matthew's stepfather entered the room, where Matthew was gazing at a photo of his grandfather. His grandfather had been a traditional boxer, which sparked Matthew's interest in the sport. Seeing this, his stepfather decided to connect with him by giving him a book about Muhammad Ali's life. However, Matthew wasn't particularly thrilled about the gift, despite the book's potential to inspire him. He carried it everywhere, including to school the next day. As Matthew walked into school, he spotted Hector approaching from the other side. Even though Hector had bullied him the day before, he still seemed intent on provoking Matthew. Hector and his friends began to taunt him, even spilling a drink on Matthew and his book. Fortunately, Dan Barnes, the school cleaner, witnessed the scene. Unable to stand by, he confronted Hector and demanded that he clean up the mess they had created. Fearing Barnes, Hector and his friends quickly picked up the fallen cup and disposed of it before leaving. At that moment, Barnes noticed the boxing book in Matthew's hand and, recognizing Matthew's interest in boxing, invited him to join the school's boxing club. However, Hector and his friends soon began to bully Matthew again. Seeing his friend in trouble, Nick stepped in to protect him and was eager to confront Hector. As tensions rose, both Matthew and Nick were summoned to the principal's office. Matthew believed they were being blamed for the situation, and as a result, they were suspended. Feeling frustrated and wanting to defend himself against the bullying, Matthew decided he needed to learn boxing. When he got home, he asked his parents for permission to join a boxing gym. However, his mother was not supportive of the idea, leading to a heated argument between them. She reminded him of his past struggles, expressing concern that boxing could be dangerous. Matthew, feeling misunderstood, insisted he wanted to pursue boxing not to impress others, but to escape the bullying and honor his grandfather's legacy as a boxer. Despite his explanations, his mother remained unconvinced and continued to worry about his safety. In the end, her silence made Matthew feel as though he was not being heard. The next day, Matt went to the boxing club, eager to improve his skills and work toward his dream. As he observed the fighters, he felt motivated. Soon, Coach Harwad arrived and announced that an event called the IY Boxing Competition would take place that evening, where the top 2 boxers from the school would be chosen to form a team. As Matt listened, he noticed that Hector and his friend Joy were nearby. It became clear to him that Hector and Joy were the star boxers of the club, making it even more challenging for him to compete. Concerned about the competition, Matt contemplated leaving. Just then, Barnes approached him and noticed Matt's apprehension. He encouraged Matt not to back down and advised him to demonstrate his skills in front of Hector and Joy, as the coach had requested. With renewed determination, Matt stepped into the ring to start boxing. After hearing Barnes's encouragement, Matt decided to return and see what was happening. The fight had concluded, and the coach announced that Hector would now face Matt. Although it was Matt's first time in the ring, he felt he had no choice but to comply with the coach's orders. He stepped into the ring and gave it his best shot, but ultimately he was unsuccessful. As the match ended, the coach blew his whistle. In a moment of frustration, Matt struck Hector, but Hector retaliated fiercely, overpowering Matt. As a result, Matt was thrown out of the boxing club, and everyone else left as well, leaving him lying on the ground. Soon after, Barnes approached Matt and began to talk to him, inquiring about what had happened. However, at that moment, Matt was preoccupied with his own thoughts. At that moment, Barnes was focused on something else, but eventually replied to Matt. He shared that he used to be like Matt, often bullied by others. However, he dedicated himself to boxing, winning numerous fights, and eventually becoming a champion. Matt wondered why Barnes was now working as a cleaner. Barnes explained that after his boxing career, he didn't earn enough money to support his family, which led him to take that job. He mentioned that boxing had become just a hobby for him. Matt found Barnes's story and perspective inspiring, so he asked if he could train with him. Barnes agreed and began teaching Matt the fundamentals of boxing. After class, Matt went to Barnes's room, where they practiced together. Barnes encouraged Matt to increase his exercise routine because he felt Matt's physique needed to be stronger. One day, they went for a run, but Matt quickly grew tired. Barnes then learned that Matt was a leukemia survivor, which explained why his mother was hesitant to let him pursue boxing due to health concerns. She wanted him to become a doctor or a lawyer instead. Barnes reassured Matt that he couldn't blame his mother for her worries. He understood Matt's passion and wanted to guide him down the right path. Barnes shared his own experiences as a leukemia survivor, encouraging Matt to face challenges head-on and pursue his dreams, with or without his mother's approval. He promised to support Matt if he wanted to become a fighter. With Barnes's help, Matt trained diligently, focusing not only on boxing but also on his overall health and attitude. As a result, he began to be recognized as a strong fighter. Although Hector and his friends attempted to bully him, Matt learned to avoid them without getting hurt, which only fueled Hector's anger. Determined to confront Matt, Hector lured him back to the boxing club. Matt felt confident and had no doubts about facing him. Hector and his friends challenged him to a fight, but as tensions escalated, Barnes intervened, confronting Hector and calling him out for his behavior. Coach Harwad arrived, siding with Hector, but Barnes was determined to report the incident, knowing it could result in serious consequences for Hector's bullying. Moreover, the situation could also jeopardize Coach Harwad's job for not addressing the issue. Consequently, Coach Harwad approached Barnes, insisting that Hector should no longer be paired with Matt and that they should let the matter go. However, Barnes felt that Harwad needed to take responsibility for the situation. Hector and Harwad were indeed accountable for their mistakes, but Matt argued that Hector, as the school's star champion, shouldn't be punished too harshly. Harwad explained that Hector was essential to the school's reputation. Barnes then suggested that instead of remaining silent, certain actions should be taken. He mentioned an upcoming AVA event that would give Matt a chance to compete. If Hector participated, it could help resolve the issue, but if not, Barnes would have to report the bullying. After some consideration, Harwad agreed, but he set a condition. Matt needed a letter from his parents approving his participation in the fight. If Matt could provide that, then it would be fine. Feeling disheartened by recent events, Matt began to contemplate quitting boxing altogether. He started to ignore Barnes, who noticed his change in attitude. To motivate him, Barnes took Matt to the library and informed him that he had already registered him as a fighter. Hearing this made Matt anxious, especially about facing Hector, but Barnes reassured him. He promised to train Matt thoroughly and help him win. This commitment from Barnes provided Matt with some comfort, and despite his initial reluctance, he began to prepare for training, encouraged by Barnes's determination. The next test was incredibly challenging, but gradually, Matt began to show signs of improvement. Barnes observed this progress closely. To participate in the upcoming fight, however, Matt needed to obtain his parents' consent by having them sign a specific form. Barnes emphasized the importance of bringing this signed document. Feeling anxious about how to approach his parents for permission, Matt decided to forge the consent letter, convinced that his mother would not approve of him boxing. The following day, after completing an exam, he went to the training facility to meet Barnes, only to find that he was not there. Matt practiced alone, focusing on his training. When he returned home, he was met by his class teacher, who revealed that they had discovered the forged letter. As a result, Matt was caught cheating, which created a significant problem for him. This situation not only jeopardized his chances of participating in the fight, but also put him in a difficult position with his teachers and parents. During this confrontation, he also learned from his homeroom teacher that Matt should distance himself from Barnes, leading to Barnes losing his job. Feeling overwhelmed and angry, he left home, seeking refuge at the shore where he knew Barnes was working after losing his job. There, he apologized to Barnes for the trouble he had caused, acknowledging that his actions had led to Barnes being unfairly punished. During their conversation, Matt shared that his family had finally agreed to let him box, but he insisted that he needed Barnes's guidance to succeed. However, Barnes pushed back, emphasizing that Matt needed to learn to fight on his own. He explained that Matt had to step into the ring by himself and prepare for the upcoming match without relying on him. Days passed, and finally, the day of the fight arrived. Friends and family gathered to support him, including his grandfather, who had come to watch. Matt felt the pressure mounting as Hector and Joey approached, trying to get into his head, but he remained focused and brave. When the fight began, both Matt and Hector stepped into the ring, ready for battle. The match consisted of 3 rounds, each lasting 1 minute. Hector dominated the first 2 rounds, landing solid punches. During the second round, Hector delivered a particularly hard hit that knocked Matt down. Concerned, both Barnes and Matt's grandfather rushed to his side. His grandfather offered him tips, while Barnes reminded him of the techniques they had practiced together. As the next round started, Matt applied the strategies he had learned. With a well-timed punch, he knocked Hector down, creating an electrifying moment in the ring. They shook hands afterward, and Barnes rushed in to embrace Matt, celebrating his achievement. When the judges announced the results, however, they declared Hector the winner. Although Matt had knocked Hector down, Hector had won the first 2 rounds, which counted toward the final decision. Yet, there was still hope for Matt. Because Hector was graduating from the school, the coach announced that Matt would take over Hector's position as the school's champion. Everything seemed to fall into place for Matt. As he looked ahead, he felt excited about his future in boxing and was eager to reconnect with Barnes, hoping to share his progress and newfound success with him.